start by taking some steps and
Yes.
saying, hey, let's just get rid of some of the academic type of requirements that need to be there, because these days people are learning at a very different rapid pace.
DEI and now DEIB. I feel there's a new letter, and I might
Hmm.
have expressed this to you, added to it to every single day. We're starting to lose our way to it being just a lucrative business for some organizations versus something that's very actionable in the company. I don't think employers understand that they have such ability to shape the fabric of America. And
Mm.
you really do have great ability to bring wealth into certain communities as a result of it. You know, the difference between candidates coming to us, it could be couch surfing and coming out of a halfway house to owning an apartment. And we have thousands of stories this way.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, it's your host, Jamar Jones, and welcome to another episode of the Foureva podcast, where we talk about things that are business and things that are personal, because business is personal. And we're going to get into an awesome conversation here today because I got connected with Dina and we just had such an impactful conversation, like just off the jump. And it just was really inspiring, but also very educational, even for myself, just to hear it from another viewpoint of just how she approaches D&I, and also just dealing also with a global organization, also dealing with some of her journey, even in getting into this space and doing what she does. I think she has a very unique perspective on it. And so we're also going to dive a little bit into some of the backstory behind that. But I have the pleasure of welcoming Dina Hernandez to the Foureva podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much. And I think it's a great honor to be here with the Foureva podcast. And with you, I echo the same sentiment. We had such an impactful conversation. I thought it was thought provoking, and it really left me kind of craving another discussion with you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, let the people know a little bit about who you are, what you do. Just give a little snapshot into your life.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. So huge shout out to everyone that's down in Gowanus and Turnkey Projects. I am a Chief Human Resources Officer to Elm Home and Building Solutions. We are a remodeling organization with a manufacturing arm. We are one of the largest here in the US. 3 years ago, we started with 500 employees. We're well over 2,500 at the height of our business. We were almost 4,000 employees. We were a pandemic successful company. And what I love about Elm Home and Building Solutions is we're a second chance organization. We actively go out and seek people who are just at an impasse in their life and they need to get back on their feet. And we're very altruistic about this. It's a very deep philosophy in our organization. So we're really proud of the work that we do.
Oh, and we're gonna get right into that right away, because out of everybody I talk to and speak to just in this space, diversity, equity, inclusion, also accessibility, belonging. Um, this is a very interesting space because there's a lot of talk, and I feel like little action
Yeah.
that's happening. And I'll just say it like it is, because I mean, I travel nationally all around speaking on the topic of change your circle, change your life, which is really a lot of that is rooted through how we connect with one another. And a lot of people are trying to figure this out, of how to connect and how to be accessible and how to do things a little bit different. And when we talked, you not only just talked about things, you actually implemented real strategies. And I'm super curious to just let people know kind of what you've implemented from a DEI strategy within your organization, a little bit of the beliefs on that, and what has worked for you.
So I echo your sentiment on uh, DEI and now DEIB. I feel there's a new letter, and I might
Mhm.
have expressed this to you, added to it to every single day. It has become just a training notion in organizations. And I think it's really, we're starting to lose our way to it being just a lucrative business for some organizations versus something that's very actionable in the company. And one of the things that we have done as an organization is people applying to our positions are not required to give us a resume. And it was something that we actively sought after to do. We went through great depths even to say, no, it's not a feature that we need or we want. And our applicants even applying to the company because we are hiring individuals. It's not a DEIB effort, it's 6 letters only, people. We're just focused on people coming into the organization and whether they have the curiosity and the willingness to learn. We feel that as an employer, we really can shape our training as long as we have the right individual coming towards us as an organization. And that's something really uncommon. Believe it or not, people spend a lot of money on getting algorithms to search for the right patterns in a resume. And we're saying we don't want to do any of that because it's actually putting up barriers. And people don't know, but I think very subconsciously, if you have, Dina Smith applying to a role from a community college versus, Dana Smith who applied from, a much more prestigious four-year school, that person has a better shot getting through the door merely by what's written off of a piece of paper. So we just felt like it takes the screening out of getting to know people. And, DEIB is moving us further and further away to me from, the 6 letters that matter the most. And it's the ones that just spell people. So we're just
Yeah.
focused on who are the people we're hiring into the organization. So that was our first real step in saying, what's the philosophy of the organization and what are we doing to actually embrace that philosophy authentically?
Yeah, and that's just it's so powerful because you kind of eliminated the entire process of getting the like just even receiving the resume. But
Yeah,
I was even starting to challenge people. So after our conversation, it really had me thinking because I'm like, I even just challenge people just to look at just your requirements of your of what you're doing when it comes down to your recruitment strategies
yeah,
because just simply maybe take away some of the education part of
yeah,
it. Maybe, you don't have to go as far as taking out the entire resume, even though, that's also a stopping point as well. But I'm like, if you're an organization listening to this and you want to kind of tap in and say, hey, how can we adapt this model? Maybe you just start, and I'm all about action. So just start by taking some steps and
yes,
saying, "Hey, let's just get rid of some of the academic type of requirements that need to be there because these days people are learning at a very different rapid pace.
yes,
And there's a lot of other certifications, other boot camps, there's other accelerator programs that people are taking where they don't have the 4-year degree, they don't have the community college, but they have these. They're already self-taught and self-learned, and they're able to add a lot of value to an organization, but you're missing out on that because you're so focused on just getting your talent pool from certain areas. And
yes.
that's what found this so impactful of just a way of being more accessible and more people having an opportunity.
Yeah, I think, what we, as an employer, what we're also counting and not discounting is life experience. I think that people could come from a certain background and they could be discounted as a result of it. But meanwhile, there is a tremendous depth of life experience them that would really help an organization that might be undergoing, a rapid change, etc. I think this philosophy really has helped us actually look very, very focused inward to determine, are we training? You know, what does the training look like? When we have someone who might not have those skills, but they do have the behaviors that we need to bring them on board, are we really ready to do that? So, as a company, once we remove that kind of barrier for people to come in, it really forced us to see, are we even training them the right way? And I
Mm,
think this is what really starts to pull the strategy together the right way because we were able to access very non-traditional paths, and we have had tremendous success during the pandemic for to go from a company that was 500 employees to 4,000, 10 locations to
wow.
40 locations in less than 36 months is a testimony that there are people out there that if you gave them the right opportunity, they would really surprise you. But you have to be willing as an employer to step up and have robust training to bring them in. So that was the second phase for us. It was really concentrating on, okay, we're going to get people who might be technologically illiterate. Are we going to be okay with that? And what are we going to do as an organization to complement them, to get them through? So, in essence, I look at our strategy and we're almost like a micro community college to some extent,
Wow.
where we're bringing folks in through kind of an ensuite of how are we going to be able to really teach them to do the job that we have. And we take it really seriously because I think as an employer, I don't think employers understand that they have such ability to shape the fabric of America, and you really do have great ability to bring wealth into certain communities as a result of it. You know, the difference between candidates coming to us, it could be couch surfing and coming out of a halfway house to owning an apartment, and we have thousands of stories this way. And I think that, you know, giving those employees that level of hope that they need is what makes, you know, the DNA of our business really successful.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And what so the other common question I get is, so this sounds great, Dina. This sounds, fantastic. I believe in this. How do I start implementing and pitching this to executive leadership to actually get on board? How do I do this?
This is a statement that I'm going to make, that I'm really passionate about this one, and it's so overlooked, and I get it constantly from heads of HR or folks that are really focused on diversity and inclusion. But I will tell you right now, if your reporting line is to anyone other than the CEO, your company has sent the signal people come second. I refuse to believe that a CEO that really puts people first would have the wherewithal to park them and have them report to a chief financial officer, a chief operating officer. Folks that are really spearheading this effort are tucked into the wrong parts of the organization. And if they have done that, then the first conversation you need to have on implementation is, are you even willing to put people first? Right? This isn't about DEI. We're going back to the six letters that I'm focused on, the letters that spell the word people. Are you willing to put people first? Because if you're not willing to do that, then every effort that you're undertaking is not going to truly materialize. It's going to be like a thing, a checkbox, a training. And CEOs really have the power to influence to see how this is going to materialize in their organization. I've had the great privilege of working under fantastic chief executive officers and reporting directly into them because they understand that they want to wave the flag and the banner and put the stake down on culture. But there are so many people and so many heads of HR, heads of diversity and inclusion, chief learning executive officers that don't have that privilege. And I don't think they really understand that your first job is your CEO aware that he sent the signal internally and externally to the market that people really are second and third. And I think that's where this conversation needs to start. And it doesn't typically start there because it's an unnerving aspect to say, I'm going to go after the president of the organization and say, put the stake in the ground for people. Not everyone wants to do that, right? Who wants to challenge the CEO of a company? But you have to. That's the intrinsic role of someone who wants to focus on DEI or any people initiative in the organization.
Oh, I love this statement because it's so profound of a way to actually affect change.
Yes.
Because anytime that you want to actually affect change, it has to come. You have to get alignment with the
Yes.
right people that are actually going to implement it.
Yes.
And that's why it's so important to have that night. And I tell people constantly that there's stages within a business of growth. And at a certain point in a business, it gets to the point in the beginning, it's sales. 100%. You gotta you gotta have sales to grow the business. Otherwise, you ain't got nothing. But
Yes.
after when you get to a certain point of sales, you get growth, which in turn gets people into the passion, the mission, and vision of the business. But then at that point, really the people are the lifeblood of the organization, and without people, you have nothing.
Yes.
And
Um,
that's what I constantly tell people because, like, it's not because a lot of times when you think about these, diversity inclusion initiatives, they always try to tie it to metrics. Of course, if it's turnover,
Yeah.
if it's a recruitment pool, if it's how is this going to increase our revenue, and all those things can happen through these initiatives, but at the source of it, meaning that we got to align with the CEO on this. The person that is in charge of the people is really the champion.
Yeah.
And so they have to be held to the highest accounts within the business, and not kind of put off on the side and say, oh yeah, just go work on that. But these are the main core aspects that we really want as a business. But the people is it without the people, you have nothing.
Oh, and that's fact, right? It's a hard fact, and I've also heard similar to you. I echo that. Sales is everything. You're right, but you don't make them without people.
Right.
All roads, you don't drive accountability without people. All roads literally will lead you back to people. But yet, as I've kind of, pulled at earlier, why aren't people reporting to the person who influences that area the most? And I think a lot of it has to do, it's a combination of the two. Are you an HR leader that leads the organization? Are you an HR leader that lets the organization lead you? And that's a very provocative conversation that heads of HR need to have with themselves. And then they have to really, really figure out and sit down and find out, why aren't they at the right areas that they need to be? There could be, right, some business shortcomings or learnings there. But I still go back to the CEO. Would the CEO let the CFO fail? No. Would they let the COO fail? No. Then why aren't you developing the head of HR to be more business oriented? So I still, no matter how I look at this kind of prism, right, and in an organization that has so many facets, it will always go back to the CEO of the organization and what the CEO wants to stand for. What's interesting is they look at some of these initiatives as a thing. Culture is not a thing. It's not a checkbox. And diversity and inclusion is about culture. It's about culture in America. It's about culture in the workplace. It's about culture. And that could be esoteric for some people. But for the CEO, it's the unwritten rule of your company. Does your company have an unwritten rule that really all you're doing at the end of the day is checking a box? And someone really needs to be able to drive that serious question home, right? And do they take that standard for accounting procedures,
Right.
regulatory procedures, any other procedure in the organization? What's the integrity of the business? So I really think it really goes back to the head of HR and the delicate aptitude to really challenge the CEO to say culture isn't a checkbox, it's the unwritten rule of our business. And if you want to embrace DEI, DEIB, you have to really start to really ask yourself, is there an unwritten rule here that's getting in the way? And really draw that out of the business. And I think if more heads of HR could be really successful with that level of a dialogue, there definitely could be movement in the needle with really looking at hiring differently, like
Right.
really looking at it different. Not, hey, we're going to do diversity and inclusion, but we're only going to aim for Wharton. No, you have to do it differently. You have
Right.
to have skin in the game to say you're going to do it differently. And that's a concept that's not foreign to CEOs. If they want to compete in the market, they got to do it differently. They have to have skin in the game. So the head of HR has got to force them to compete in the market and do it differently as well. It's a business driver. It's just simply not viewed that way, unfortunately.
Wow. And so as I'm sitting here listening, I guess a lot of people could probably be like, man, Dina's really put together. you know, like it's because she has this personality that, she can really kind of persuade and be able to negotiate and be able to, and she really knows herself to be able to make these kind of statements. So going into that a little bit, how did you get to this place? Like and I know you might have a long story, but I feel like you gave me some couple key points within your story that kind of framed you who you are today, and kind of
Yeah.
having this kind of vision and having that self-trust within yourself to say, hey, I'm going to stand up for what I feel like is right.
So I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in turnkey housing, and I was that worker who got kind of like the head tilt as I was going up, in the ranks myself. So I know what that is firsthand. I know what it is. not coming from a more prestigious level of education. I know what that is being a woman in the workplace. I know what that is being a minority in the workplace as well, right? So I think that I come from a cloth that already has felt what that experience could be. On the other flip side of the coin, I also know the work I had to put in, and I know the leadership I had to go under to get the chances that I have gotten to make myself really successful. So I do know it can be done with the right employers, right? I have had, a career of proof of being under the right employers who really kind of allow me to thrive. So I just know what that power really could be. I was someone who experienced it myself. And I think, ultimately, it's a great question. I think what really has gotten me here is that I look at the landscape of America and our incessant need to have labels. It's amazing to me that we added the letter B to DEI when I means inclusivity and B is belonging. I'm some days I say to myself, what is the difference between what we're trying to achieve here in the civil rights movement? We haven't made a dent in this area. We just continuously relabel it. And I think every time we go through the cycle, we're reinventing it and we're really not getting anywhere versus someone just saying, look, this is the same damn thing. Like, when are we just going to hold people accountable to kind of some level of action? And I know that accountability it drives really successful results. And I'm passionate about this because I just don't believe you need certain things to be successful. I grew up with a father who was very successful, and he dropped out of junior high school. He has no formal education. I've worked with the most successful business leaders, and they have no formal college whatsoever. And I've worked with CEOs who really knew that's not what's going to make it. Grit's going to make it. Hustle's going to get it. Drive, tenacity, motivation. These are the things that help you weather a headwind, in an organization. The rest of the stuff we can teach if we want to. So I think for me, because of so much of my career was under, organizations and leaders that really saw so far down the line and had foresight to see past that. And they are incredibly successful organizations with strong, high performing cultures. I just felt like I know what this could be if we could just get the message out there and have it almost duplicated. But coming up as the head of HR, I really had to learn what it was to get a seat at the table. And I've watched how the landscape has changed, with heads of HR. And I don't think we've made much of a dent with the perception on HR either. I still very much think HR people are baked into the birthday cake, handbook, transactional kind of view. I think the fact that I came from the streets, so I have an edge, right? I have that street smart, which is the best. I'm going to tell you right now, best education you can get, hands down. It's going to really teach you how to navigate through certain scenarios. And I think the career experience and life experience combined is kind of what has made me really confident. And then, I've also gotten to a point of knowing that, every executive is learning themselves.
Right.
Irrespective of the title that they have, I'm learning every single day. I don't have it all figured out. And I work with other really great executives that are learning, every single day. So I think when you get to a certain point, you start to realize, God, that really scary, hairy, label of president and CEO, they're learning too. They're human too, at the end of the day. So it started to dilute to me that seriousness around just having labels, right? Or just putting, a sort of icon or a token. And we're really crazed with this kind of stuff. And I just want to continue to kind of look past that because I see what we're doing and the results that we have in our organization. So it can be done. It's just really a matter of, are you willing to put your back into it?
Oh man, you just everything you say. I'm with 110%. So let's just really quickly talk about kind of the entertainment angle. So we here at Foureva Media, so we believe that entertainment is a universal communication tool, and it can be used to really connect all different cultures and backgrounds and people. And so we use that as a tool to be able to connect in various different ways. But I feel like you had a very interesting kind of background when it came down. When I brought this, that's it. You're like, oh yeah, because of some of the backgrounds that you grew up with, and I felt like that was very interesting because I feel like some of those scenarios and circumstances probably started to frame the mindset of how you're even being able to connect with others.
Yes, it did. So, my father owned a lot of car audio. I grew up in the era of car audio back in the '80s, and he was one of the largest dealers for car audio. So I'm talking about, back then it was custom boxes, custom amplifiers, lights in the wheels, PPI amps, 6x9 speakers, Kenwood, all that stuff. And we were in Brooklyn up on Atlantic Avenue, and we had a lot of stores, and we were also in pro audio as well. So I grew up with lots of rappers and people in the entertainment industry coming to our store because either they were on the pro audio side and they needed turntables and mixers, or they were making their bank, and now they were on the car audio side of the business, and they were spending the money that they had now on a vehicle.
Right.
And what I learned from that experience, and we were entrenched in our parents' business from really, really young. What I learned from that was you can't judge a book by its cover. Just because this is the facade that the person has put on, or the facade that they're matching in the industry that they're in. I have met some great people who've taught me amazing kind of life lessons with me working as a cash register girl and then coming into the store, to buy something. So to me, it was kind of like my first foray at don't ever judge a book, by its cover. And it to me was a pretty, for us, it very thankful to the entertainment industry. It put me through college, put five of my siblings to some formal education, and gave us a really wonderful life, my parents and I. And I'm grateful to it tremendously, and I also gathered my affinity for it as an art. It really opened me up, right, to just a really wide genre of music. And I would probably say, as I talk to you now, I probably think that was probably some of the biggest influencers for me. I remember getting exposed to so much type of music with everyone coming into our store. It wasn't just people in the hip hop industry, it was people in the Latino industry. It was EDM. Well, back then it was house music and, trance music. So growing up in that really kind of propelled me to take on a role that was global and travel the world. And I think because I was already kind of homegrown in the judge a book by its cover, and be curious with it, and also kind of like embrace, the arts that are around you. When I went off to my first career and I traveled substantially to different countries because of them, I was very grounded, in that experience. So it was probably to this day the most, remarked experience of my life.
Yeah, I feel like because I did about 11 years as a hip hop artist, and like that experience was it really built me for what I'm doing today, to be honest. Like that was the best education I could possibly get, just because all the types of people I met, the places I went, the grit and
Yeah,
hustle and hunger
yeah,
that you have to have,
yeah,
to almost for you to believe in a vision that not a lot of people can see quite yet. I mean,
yeah,
there's so many different elements of just kind of that hard knocks learning
yes,
that
yes,
gave me, but I also saw how music can really connect and change a person's perspective and really direction in life.
yes,
A lot of people, they connect and they learn differently, and music is just one of those entry points that people can really relate to and really collaborate on,
yeah,
and have that common vision.
yeah.
And it's
And it's
so
worldly.
powerful.
It's a universal language beyond English. I will never forget when I first landed in Singapore. I went to a club. It was called the Ministry of Sound. It was the largest nightclub in Singapore. And I would never forget. It was profound to me. This was the year that Daddy Yankee's Gasolina came out, and it was like the number
Oh,
one
huge
song
record,
in
huge.
Global. It was huge. It was massive, right? And I am surrounded by hundreds of Asian people singing this song. I don't know a lick of English any day of the week, but I don't think people have the profound appreciation that they'll say, learning English, is a global language. No, learning music is a global language. So I think it has
Mm,
a very, very big power of influence in the world that is really not very well understood sometimes.
wow. That's amazing. Can you give us a real quick story on living next to Jay-Z?
Yes. So 560 State Street. Street, if you were out there, you used to come to my dad's store, Jay-Z, and you would come and buy your equipment. We lived upstairs. You were 5B, we were 5C. We lived right next to one another, and you came back and you shot your video at 560 Straight Street, and you popped in and said hello to my dad. So it's great. It doesn't end there. We had the Wu-Tang Clan, Fat Joe. We just had so many guys come into my father's store. So, like I said, Steve from Stevie Wonder,
Yeah.
it was just great. Queen Latifah, we just had so many people coming in. If you remember us, we locked down Atlantic Avenue. Like I said, it was probably the most memorable period and will continue to be the most memorable period of my life.
Holy crap. All legends too. Like all legends that you just dropped. Like it's not like you just had some pass-bys. I mean,
No, we didn't have passerbys. We had some serious guys. And a lot of guys were coming there, with their tapes to play them. It was a big deal. And before like studios were, all the craze and everywhere, you would lock yourself in your Honda and put it as loud as possible to listen to the track. So
Right.
this is how, our car audio business started. They would, play their pro audio stuff in our dad's store, and then we would sit out in the front of Atlantic Avenue, lock the door to Honda, a bunch of people piled in, and we would listen to the track. And that's where some of the best sound comes out in your car, because it's so insulated. So it was, like I said, it was an interesting upbringing.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So yeah, and in closing, I want to ask you one last question. How has being able to change your circle really affected your life?
I would say I made sure that as I changed it, it got bigger in the areas that I needed it to get bigger in. And it's a hard journey because you will be making calculated decisions, right, about who's in the circle. And there's some people who might not be there that you don't need to exclude them kind of like in your mind or your soul, but you have to thank them, right, for the part of the circle that they formed as you continue to kind of shape it and make it get really bigger. And I had a lot of that. Departing the projects was the biggest one. And if you ever go back and you grow up and you go back, they're like, you made it out. You did it. Look at
Yeah.
you. You did it.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would say, did I change that circle? No, I might have made it bigger, but they always have some place in the arc,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think it's important, at least for me, not to forget that period of my life has a place in that arc of my circle. And I'm not going to forget it. I'm going to move around that track, that circle a little bit more every single day.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Where can people find you at? How can they connect with you?
Oh, you can find me on LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn. My personal email is there. I love having conversations just like this. They take us away, from everything else that's going on. And sometimes you hear something and it sounds good and you're like, yeah, I dig that. So I appreciate your questions because every time we talk, I just dig everything we talk about.
Yeah, it's really impactful, and also I challenge people that are listening here today or tuning in, watching. Definitely adapt this ability to open yourself up to new conversations and new opportunities. There's so many people that literally close themselves off and just stay in their bubble, and that's it. And they get really comfortable just in that space. But you're not going to be able to expand your mind, your opportunities, your thought process if you don't open that door for new opportunities or new connections, new people, because it's just so important, and just be intentional about it. I think that there's a lot of people that just immediately kind of build a criteria. And if somebody tries to connect with somebody, it's like, oh, well, they're not going to fit this right now, so I don't have the time. Just try to carve out each week, just like say, hey, I'm going to do 2 intentional just meet and greets, just meeting different people, different backgrounds, because you just never know who you're actually going to interact with or
Yes.
who that person knows. They may ultimately change your life depending on what that relationship, what that connection, really, turns out to be. You just have no clue, but you're not going to know if you don't at least try.
I think, like I said, we've inflated the term DEIB. It's it's just another word. You can do this without having to take that initiative. Look what you did. Look what I did. I was in remodeling and you're in entertainment and you're doing
Yeah.
these amazing things, and our paths converged because you made an intentional reach out,
Yeah.
right? So I think people, if anything, they could take away from us talking together is the power of this level of a conversation would not have occurred had it not been for the intent that you're describing.
Oh yeah, 100%. And it's broadened my perspective on things, and it's helped my talk and the things that I tell people as well. And I mean, it's really helped me as well through this. And I'm excited to see where else things can take us. But yeah, I really appreciate your time, Dina, for being on here, and really diving into some powerful conversations. Hopefully, people that were listening, they learned, they jotted down some
Yeah.
notes, were able to take something back with them, to really implement and really, don't just think about these things. Think,
Yes.
internalize, but then act
Yes.
on these things and see how can you move the needle, how can you move things forward, and that's what it's all about. So thank you so much. I
You're
really
very welcome.
appreciate it. And yeah, everybody, please subscribe and follow for more amazing content just like this. Until the next time.
Thank
Peace.
you.
Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell for more amazing content that we're going to be putting out. And don't forget, you can change your circle to change your life.